All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Rebecca Robbins, and I'll be talking today a little bit about barriers to technology enhanced learner centered classrooms. This is for Dr. Hewitt's Diffusion of Innovations class. So let's get started. So, what are some of the things that are in the way of a tech enhanced learner centered classroom? Um, so first, there are what we call first order or external barriers. So these are things that are kind of outside of a teacher's control. So these might be things like lack of resources. Maybe a teacher just doesn't have the time in the day to adopt these new technologies or pedagogy. Perhaps it's funding. Maybe there's not enough computers for all of the students, or not enough money to fund some of these like third-party web tools that require a subscription service. Maybe the technology in itself is non-existent. Institutionally, perhaps the institution doesn't really value the use of technology. Culture in the school building, how are people around the teacher adopting technology? Because if it's not something that's supported in the school building, if not a lot of people are are adopting the technology, are using learner-centered instruction, it's hard for someone to kind of go against the grain. Assessment, right? So, we are working all year towards these state tests or even county tests. We have, in my county, we call them the SPGs. I think in other counties, they are the SLOs, the student learning objectives or assessments, however you call it. Everything that we're doing is kind of pressured on by this assessment, and maybe learner-centered instruction doesn't fit that mold. Student behavior, maybe you have a class full of kids who are not willing to participate in this new way of learning, or perhaps it's something as difficult as having a class full of first graders and trying to teach those first graders how to use the computer. And even parents, values and beliefs from the parents, um, that kind of affect whether or not a teacher integrates technology in their classroom. That can affect it. And those are all things that are external or outside of the teacher or facilitator's control. So on the other hand, we have second order barriers or internal barriers. So these are things that the teacher does control, that the facilitator can control. And I'm going to break this down into kind of two actual sections. We're going to talk about beliefs and then knowledge and skills of the teacher. So first, teacher beliefs, this kind of internal belief system. So some things that affect whether or not a teacher might integrate technology into their classroom. It could be their attitude towards technology in the classroom. Do they think it's valuable? Do they think that learners learn better, more efficiently through the use of technology? The attitude toward the value of technology in student learning, like I just said, does it have any effect on how a student learns? Their attitude toward technology being a part of their job. Perhaps they feel like I'm paid to teach, I'm not paid to learn how to use these web tools or apps or different hardwares and softwares. Okay. And then finally, this idea of self-efficacy in regards to using technology. So a teacher's own self-confidence in using technology. Does a teacher feel comfortable using technology in the classroom? Do they feel like they could lead a classroom of learners in using this technology? And a lot of things kind of go into that self-efficacy, and it is maybe their own experiences with technology in their life. Has technology been something that was introduced perhaps later in life? Are they sort of native to technology? Have they had good experiences? Have they had bad experiences? All of these things sort of contribute to this idea of self-efficacy. Um, and then also teacher knowledge and skills. So there's different sort of, I guess, levels of teacher knowledge, right? So a teacher needs subject knowledge in what they teach. Okay, so I teach high school Spanish, so I need to obviously know how to speak Spanish. And my course is a history and culture course, so I need to know the things that have happened in history and cultural aspects that are important to teach. Okay, pedagogy, so how are we teaching? And then the article, I think it was the combined cultural and the second article, I'll mention it in a minute. That's the one, it talked about how teachers need to know how to teach specific content to specific learners in specific situations. There's also, teachers need to know, like, what is learner-centered instruction, right? They need to know how to use technology itself. There's so many skills. You know, if you're a classroom teacher currently, I know that we all have learned so many skills just in the last 6 months. You know, how to do a Zoom session, how to record a video, how to upload it to your LMS, how to use an LMS effectively. The knowledge of technology is so important, and even down to hardware, you know. I had to repair an external hard drive the other day that stopped working, you know. So there's so many levels of actual technology knowledge that are really important. And then finally, knowledge of how to develop a technology plan. Okay, so how do you teach these learners to use the technology and then also use it to learn? Okay, because before the learners can really utilize your LMS, they need to know how to use it. It's, you know, how does Google Classroom work? How does D2L work? How does Schoology work? They need those skills, and you have to be able to provide them. Okay. So those are kind of the main barriers, right? Your internal barriers, what teachers can control themselves, their beliefs, their skills, and their knowledge. And then the external barriers that are things that are without their control. So let's talk about how we can overcome some of these things. Okay, so first, just obtaining those necessary resources. I think, at least in my opinion, I think that that's number one. You can't, if you don't have the resources to do it, it's it's very hard to do the thing without the resources. So whether that's funding, whether that's grant writing, teachers need the resources necessary. Secondly, we need to facilitate changes in attitudes and beliefs among teachers. And there's two ways that you can do this. We can create a vision and technology plan. And really what that's about is creating a cultural pressure in the school building for folks to want to be on board with adopting technology, integrating technology in the classroom. So what does that look like? What does a school building look like that that kind of has this positive peer pressure? It's a school that is well equipped with all of the technology. The focus is on the process of using the technology. Skills are acquired by the teachers. There's support for the teachers. Teachers have opportunities to discuss problems with peers and facilitators, and the opportunity to come up with solutions. Just the very nature of students learning has been changed, and there's the pervasive use of effective tools. So that would be, those are ways that you can kind of change the culture in your building to want, I guess, to persuade teachers to want to integrate technology into their classroom, focus on learner-centered instruction. Another way to do that is professional development. And we all have a lot of feelings about professional development. I know we have all sat through a session that's an hour or two, and you feel like, well, that was a big waste of my time. So some ways to have good professional development is give the teachers, I think one of the main complaints that I read about, and then I feel too, is there's not enough content specific development. Okay, so for example, if you go to a training on Flipgrid, if the entire training is about how to use Flipgrid in a language arts classroom and you're a math teacher, that's not going to help you a lot. And a lot of focus is on how to use the tool themselves instead of how to use the tool in your classroom. So there's not a lot of, well, how can we apply this? It's mainly, okay, click on File, then Open, then New. and not enough, here is an example lesson of how I use in my classroom, and this is maybe how you could adopt it to yours. There's a lot of professional development that is geared completely towards new users, and advanced or immediate users feel bored and want to check out. So those are some kind of complaints about professional development, and ways to make it better, ways to make it more applicable to teachers. So to kind of sum all of that up, making it more about how to use that tool in your classroom, giving content specific examples of using that tool, and giving teachers space to play. I think a lot of professional development can be sit and get, literally watch someone else do the thing. And I think it's really helpful to give teachers the time and space and the facilitation, the coaching, to kind of being alongside them while they just play around in the space. I think there's a lot of value in that. And then the final thing is just reconsidering assessment. This is kind of a big deal. It's how important do we think these state tests are in measuring what a student has actually learned? I think in this COVID time, we really had to reconsider a lot of assessment, because at least in my county, all of our what we call SPGs, our SLOs, those have been canceled. And so without the before and after, the pre and post test, how are we going to measure assessment? How can we measure assessment in an environment where if you give a kid a multiple choice test online, they're totally going to cheat? So how can we utilize and leverage technology to really measure what students have learned and their progress? And that's completely different than what we would consider traditional, like, bubble tests. Okay, so this is kind of like a complete pedagogical mind view overhaul. And I think when it comes to, like, beliefs versus practice, one of the articles mentioned that teachers are generally way more constructivist in belief than in practice. I think in our minds, we want to be constructivist. We want to do the learner-centered instruction. But in practice, a lot of times our own classrooms are more of the behavioralist, okay? Just because of all of these barriers, these external barriers that we have working against us. So I wanted to end with a little bit of positivity and kind of, well, how do we do this? And this is a quote that I will read from the On and Ray Luth article, and it says, "Even if teachers have all of the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and tools they need, they will not be able to create effective learner-centered classrooms if they still have to cover a large amount of content in a short time and focus on preparing students for high-stake tests. It appears that effective learner-centered learning experiences require all those involved with the system, including administration, parents, and students, to support the learning-focused paradigm and be willing to perform the new roles that the paradigm requires." So this is a full team effort. It's going to take everybody involved. It's not, the onus of is not just on the teachers, okay? We are all in it together, and it's going to take everybody all on the same page to build that cultural climate of learner-centered instruction and technology integration in the classroom, to provide professional development that that is helpful for teachers, to give the resources that we need. So it's a big team effort. All right, so just to close, the two resources were the two articles from this week reading, the On and Ray Luth article, and then the Ertmer and Utenbrecht Leftwich article. So anyways, thanks for listening, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I feel like this is a YouTube video, so I'll just let you know to subscribe, comment below, hit that bell, be sure to like, and let me know what you want to see in my next video. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.